My boss tried to replace me. I work as a breakfast cook for a higher-up retirement home. I'm only 27, but I've been cooking for about 9 years at this point. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I am really good at my job. Despite catering to the richest elderly people in my area, no one ever complains about my food, and I do everything I can to bend over backwards for these residents so they're happy and well-fed. If you've ever worked in a retirement home, you know that making the residents happy in the morning is the most important job. If their day starts off badly, the whole place falls apart by lunchtime. More on this later. The way the shift scheduling works at my job is as follows. Breakfast cook gets in at 6 a.m. to open the kitchen and get breakfast started. Morning server arrives at 7 when the dining room opens. Culinary manager arrives around 9, if he's even coming in that day. Evening crew and additional servers start between 10:30 to 11:30. The breakfast cook is the one in charge of both breakfast and lunch services, and is expected to also do the prep for themselves for the next day, plus all the cleanup from your current day. We have no designated dishwasher. Everyone does their own cleanup. The night crew is required to cook dinner and shut down the kitchen after while also doing prep and clean up for themselves. By now, you've probably noticed that I said night crew, not night cook, because there's usually 2 or 3 people on the night shift for dinner, while only one person does both breakfast and lunch. Usually, this means at night, 2 people can do prep, both cooking for the current day and preparing items for the next day, until service starts. Then one person mans the line and another does the cleanup and shut down. But in the morning, service starts an hour after my shift starts. Then I get a 2-hour in-between period before the lunch service starts, and my shift ends right after that. For anyone who doesn't work in kitchens regularly, that is practically 0 time to do anything. Especially if you remember that I'm legally required to have an hour's worth of break time during my shift, that leaves me with 2 hours to cook, clean, prep, and open the kitchen per day. By nothing short of a miracle, I get it done. I'm one of the original staff members at this location, so I've been here since opening day. At first, it wasn't that hard to keep up since we had maybe 5 residents to feed. But now, 7 months later, we have nearly 50 residents plus any guests they bring in. Naturally, it's getting harder to keep up. When we hit 30 residents, I began telling management that I needed assistance in the morning. The night shift was relaxed and easy. I know because I've had to work it a few times when people are sick, while the morning shift is high pressure and high stress. I sat down and outlined for them everything I do and what areas I need help in, but I was pretty much told to suck it up. They can't afford more help. I then asked them to move one of the evening people to start earlier to at least take some pressure off of me, and the culinary manager told me that a 9-5 slot doesn't exist and I'm not going to create one. Fine, whatever. I just started buckling down, made sure I took my ADHD meds in the morning and worked even harder. Then we got up to 40 residents. I spoke up again because even with me working my butt off and skipping my breaks, I was starting to fall behind as the week went on. I got the same response. I buckled down even harder and began asking the evening crew to help me. Then, in July, on my birthday, the culinary manager called me into his office after my shift. The conversation went something like this. CM, hey Anon, I noticed you're struggling to get prep done for the next day, and as a result, Erica, the night person that opens on my days off, has mentioned that she comes in to nothing being ready for her in the mornings. Me, yeah, like I've mentioned I need help in the mornings, it's becoming too much work for me to do by myself. CM, well here's what I've been thinking. How about we try you out on an evening shift to see how you do there? Me, sure that's fine, I don't mind doing an evening here or there. CM, perfect. The very next day, on Wednesday, he released the schedule and I was completely replaced on mornings. For the next 2 weeks, we get our shifts 2 weeks at a time, I was scheduled to close and never open. Instead, Erica was scheduled to take over my opening shifts. Since this was obviously not what I agreed to, I expressed to the CM that I could not work the release schedule. Not only do I have another job outside of my main job, I drive for Skip the Dishes to make ends meet and I help out at my church, but my wife is in the early stages of her first pregnancy, and the morning sickness was more like all-day sickness. I needed to be there to cook and take care of her after we both finish work for the day because she was incapable of taking care of herself after being drained from her equally stressful job. I agreed to 1 or 2 shifts a week max, not all closing shifts. Once again, I was told to deal with it. The schedule was released, and he was leaving for a week-long vacation the next day, so he couldn't care less. Fine. I buckled down once more with the intention of fighting him on this when he got back from vacation. I also sat down with HR and explained my situation. They said there was nothing that could be done at the moment, but I was encouraged to have another conversation with the CM after he was back. If you're still watching, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this situation. Have you ever been stuck in a job where management just didn't get it? What would you do if you were in my shoes? Drop a comment below and let's chat about it. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, because there's a lot more to come. Your support really helps me keep sharing these experiences. When the week was over, I approached the CM again as soon as he got into the building and told him that I could not continue like this. I began explaining to him the stress it's caused me over the past week, and I got maybe half a sentence out before he cut me off and told me to deal with it. The kitchen ran for a week with me out of the position, and if it works, he isn't going to change it back. At this point, I had enough. I told him straight to his face, and in front of everyone in the kitchen, that if he didn't fix my schedule, or at least work with me to find a compromise, I would just find another job and leave. He wished me good luck. If I could have afforded to, I would have just quit on the spot. But I couldn't. So I did the next best thing. I sat back and watched the building burn. Now it's worth mentioning that I really respect Erica. She's a very intelligent woman and probably a better cook than I am. Together, her and I are the powerhouses of the kitchen. At least one of us are in every day, and we dominate the shifts we are responsible for. The main difference between us is that I'm more of a people person than she is. I know all the residents by name, their dietary preferences, etc. I also know each staff member's weaknesses, and I help boost morale or do little things to keep everyone in good spirits. I use the knowledge I have and my care for everyone to make my shifts a lot easier and make the whole building run better. Everyone knows that if there's an issue, they can come to me and I'll do everything in my power to help. Erica, however, is a typical tomboy, and she's very disagreeable. She runs the line like a well-oiled ship. Either you do your job and do it well, or you get out of her way. It works really well for the evening shift, because by then, everything is already moving smoothly, and she can come in and nail dinner like a pro. But in the mornings, where there's a lot more care required, it's like trying to navigate a bull through a china shop. With me out of position, everything I helped maintain outside of my job description began to crumble. Residents were rowdy and upset. The event staff were stressed out because they couldn't get their lunch before dealing with the rowdy residents. People were getting hurt, more so the nursing team was stretched out even thinner. The place became a mess, and everyone in the kitchen became very angry with the CM, because not only did he decide to screw me over, he also decided to do an external hire for the sous chef position everyone, except me, was gunning for. He didn't even bother interviewing any current staff, he just skipped right over them, despite company policy stating that he must give everyone in-house an interview first. It was hell on earth, but he didn't care. In the middle of the second week of this new schedule, Erica went to the CM's office and told him that the morning shift was way too stressful and she didn't want to work it anymore. Over the first week of her working the mornings, I would come in and see her progressively more and more stressed each day. Her normally calm demeanor was gone, and she was crumbling under the stress. The CM, who had just released the schedule for the next 2 weeks, told her to trade some shifts with me to try to alleviate the stress. Erica and I spoke, and we decided that I would take every other shift from her. Even though it meant I would be closing the night before I opened every 2 consecutive days I was in, I did this so there would be a clear night and day contrast between having me work the mornings versus not work the mornings. It worked like a charm. The days I was in, the whole building ran like a well-oiled machine. Everyone was happy and morale was boosted. When I wasn't in, things weren't as smooth. It wasn't as bad as the first 2 weeks, but it was definitely noticeable. I simply kept my mouth shut and did my job to the best of my ability, and watched as the CM realized he had no choice but to put me back on mornings, or lose me entirely and deal with the previous chaos himself. Today, we have 2 new cooks starting. Strange how they found room in the budget. One is going to be another support for the evening shift because one of our full-timers is going back to school this week, and another is a part-time help for the morning shift. I still want to leave because it's clear that my manager has a blatant disrespect for not only me, but everyone he manages. But at the same time, I'll be taking paternity leave in March, so I might just suck it up until then. The most interesting comments. I worked in kitchens for about 12 years until I basically had a job just like this. I worked mornings, was expected to be online for a busy breakfast while getting all my weekend brunch prep done, setting the line for lunch, dinners, and getting our wood fire oven organized and up to temp. This meant that I has to get in, immediately get my grilled seasoned, and set my breakfast line. Then, I would have to clean out last night's call from the wood oven, requiring me to hand truck hot garbage, seriously, outside and leave it to cool. I'd then get the fire going, but you gotta get it started in the front and slowly move it back every 20, 30 minutes, otherwise you'll have crazy hot spots and everything will burn immediately. So you had to really nurture it the whole time. Then I'd have to cook a busy breakfast while setting lunch stations for everyone. If breakfast happened to be busy and I got stuck online, the wood oven would be few asterisk ked, and it'd make lunch service so much harder. Or, lunch stations wouldn't be ready, and that'd screw us in other ways. Many times I got stuck online and it caused a snowball off events. So I started showing up an hour early. Not clocking it though. I'd be reprimanded for clocking in early. So I worked an hour up front, then clocked in, all to alleviate my own stress. Managers didn't seem to care as long as they didn't have to pay more in labor. Jerks. I asked time and time again for additional morning help, and they always told me if things were bad to call one of them, and they'd come in early. I tried this, but it'd still take them 60 minutes to get in, and I'd already be so bean there was no coming back. And then they'd tell me I wasn't on top of getting help in on time. I eventually quit this job, and wouldn't you know it, they hired 2 cooks to replace me because mornings had been a struggle. Some managers just have no idea what it's like to work for them. It's absolutely mind-boggling that they couldn't see it was in everyone's best interest to hire someone. They'd have a more organized and happier staff, which would have allowed us to make better food and serve more guests, i.e. make money. Owners would always come in and just yell at everyone like they were Gordon Ramsay LOL. This was a decent breakfast lunch shop, but gimme a break. We were serving $12 sandwiches. Owners were CIA graduates. They just claimed that all kitchens ran like this. No. In fact, I'd argue they were behind the times in realizing that kitchen jobs don't have to be militant and hard for everyone. Sorry for the world's longest comment. I just couldn't relate more. To double up on another comment I saw, wait till you and or your wife has paternity and start a job hunt then. You seem like a culinary badass who is willing to do anything, everything needed to make the guests and your colleagues happy. You are a great asset to the kitchen, and someone else will see that and make sure you're happy as well. Hell, if I owned a restaurant, I'd hire you for sure. Thanks for sharing. I know the feeling. I currently show up half hour early and leave a half hour later than my assigned shift because there's just too much to do. Luckily, I'm cool with the guy that does payroll, so he makes sure I get paid no matter what anyone else says. I'm also leaning more towards staying until I go on leave. But if he tries to pull a stunt like this again while my wife's in the 3rd trimester, I'd have to start my leave early. I have to be employed for at least 3 months to be eligible for paternity leave, so starting a new job would be out of the question. Ultimately, that would cut into the time I can spend with my family after the birth. We'll see. You'll have to keep watch and try to sniff out any malice before the hammer drops. Solid move by the payroll guy. Respect! If you don't mind me asking, whereabouts do you live? You can be as vague as you want, or not even answer. I'm just curious if restaurant culture is different in certain regions. I am up in the PNW, Seattle area, and I think COVID sparked a major shift in kitchen work. It was incredibly limiting on many fronts and caused restaurants to cut staff big time, with only long-term/tenured employees really sticking around. Sure, some places made exceptions or changed operations in other ways, but a vast majority just let go of staff and limited their products to take out. Now that we're somewhat back to normal, I think it's hard for them to find good workers since so many realized the industry was treating them poorly and more or less exploiting them. Not to mention they'd watch servers leave with pockets full of tips, but would make just over minimum wage themselves. Since this transpired, I think many restaurants have adjusted pay, offered benefits, and began treating people a bit better. Still a long way to go, but it's start. However, the amount of random service charges places hide has run rampant, and now customers are feeling burnt. I think the whole industry needs reform, but I won't hold my breath. If you ever have the chance to work for yourself, do it. Make yourself rich, not someone else. Maybe a food truck? If you garner success and a following, do some pop-up events, and eventually you could go brick and mortar. Go on you to stick to your guns. As a chef/kitchen manager myself, I am just befuddled by not only your CM's blindness, but simple lack of regard for his staff. He's not managing, he's being a dictator. As a manager, if even 2 people of my team are unhappy, and it's my job to notice, not them having to come to me. By the time it comes to that, I know I'm not doing my job properly. Obviously, we can't know every wrong going on, but when the customers are unhappy en masse and staff outside of your department is being negatively affected, a change needs to be made. Anyway, when you do decide to leave, don't use him as reference. It's your coworkers or home management. He sounds like someone that is better taking about his job rather than doing it, and the fact that he hired outside without any regard to existing staff means he thinks lowly of you and most likely won't have anything nice to say. Best of luck! You sound like a badass, and congratulations on the expecting baby. They're a total awesome trip. Hey, thanks for sharing. That was a good read and brought back some memories. You seem like a genuinely good guy just trying to do your best professionally and by your family. I wanted to give you props for your attitude. Keep that up. Kitchens are a tough workplace, and an attitude like yours, where you double down with hard work and professionalism when faced with adversity, both on the line and in the team, should be a chef or manager's dream and treated with great respect. Don't blame you at all for having to do what you did to show the CM what was going on. You got mouths to feed. Erica, or for that matter, any other line member, should also have your back from the start with management. If they think they're all that, let them have a go at the station you have worked hard to master and feel how hot the flames get. Can't lie and say I haven't done the same. I would ride it out till paternity, then probably look elsewhere if I were you. From the small context of this post, I wouldn't even go by application. Just go to restaurants when they are prepping an interview by saying you are just looking for a really good, strong team. The leader of one of those will say, "Sure, come do a stage shift," and a good place will pay you for it, barring no calamities occur. Not sure where you're located or what your previous work experience is, but a chef at an upscale restaurant with hopefully a better budget to pay line cooks would love someone with your qualities. Also, if anything I said is redundant or sounds condescending, I apologize. Definitely not trying to come off as if I know more than you. Like I said before, just not sure on your previous job's experience. Kudos from one kitchen warrior brother to another, and hope things work out good for you, and congratulations on your babe on the way.